Imagine a man who gave up wealth, comfort, and privilege just to live with nothing, and yet he became one of the most influential figures in history. That man is Saint Francis of Assisi. Born into riches, he turned his back on everything the world told him to desire: money, fame, success. Instead, he chose compassion, simplicity, and love for all creation. But here's the big question: why does his life still matter today? We live in a world that feels divided, fast paced, and sometimes shallow. Yet, the message of Francis about kindness, humility, and respect for people, animals, and the earth still feels like medicine we desperately need. In today's video, we will uncover the incredible story of Saint Francis of Assisi, timeless value he lived by, and what his life can teach us about living with compassion in 21st century. So sit back, relax, and let's take a journey back to medieval Italy and forward to our own lives through the eyes of one of the history's most extraordinary souls. The early life. Francis was born in 1181 in Italian town of Assisi. His father was a wealthy cloth merchant, and Francis grew up surrounded by luxury. He was known as charming, fun-loving, even a bit of a party boy. Think of him as a kid everyone wanted to hang out with, the one who always brought the drinks. But beneath that charm, Francis wanted more. As a teenager, he dreamed of becoming knight, a hero, man of glory. He even went off to fight in wars, but something happened that changed his path forever. So, what was the turning point? During one of these battles, Francis was captured and held as a prisoner of war for a year. Imagine being stuck, your life at a standstill with nothing but your thoughts. That time broke him down but also woke him up. Later, as he recovered from the illness, he had visions, moments where he felt God was calling him to something different. One day, he walked into a small, broken down church and heard a voice saying, "Francis, rebuild this my church." At first, he thought it meant literally fixing the crumbling building. But over time, he realized it was about something bigger: rebuilding the faith, reminding people of compassion and love. This led to a dramatic moment. Francis gave up his inheritance in front of the bishop, his father, and townspeople. He stripped off his fine clothes, literally standing naked, and declared that God alone was his father. From that day onward, he chose poverty. No money, no possessions, no safety yet. Just faith, kindness, and service. Love for all creation. Francis is remembered for something truly radical. His love wasn't limited to people. He spoke of brother sun and sister moon. He called animals his brothers and sisters, and he saw nature not as something to exploit, but as a part of one being family. There's even the famous story of him preaching to the birds, telling them how much God loved them. And believe it or not, birds didn't fly away, they stayed, almost listening. In another story, a town was terrified of wolves that attacked livestock. Francis went to meet the wolf, spoke gently, and made peace, convincing both wolf and the villagers to live in harmony. Whether or not you believe these stories literally, the message is powerful. Francis saw life everywhere as sacred. Francis founded the Franciscan order, a community of men who embraced poverty and service. His influence spread across Europe, and even today, Franciscan brothers and sisters serve the poor, care for animals, and live simply. In 1226, at just 44 years old, Francis died. 2 years later, he was declared a saint, and today he remains one of the most beloved figures in Christianity, admired not just by Catholics but by the people of all backgrounds. Now let's shift to the heart of this video. Why does Saint Francis matters today, right here, right now? So, he was a simplicity in a complicated world. We live in a time of constant consumption. Ads tell us we live in a time of constant compassion. We live in a time of constant consumption. Ads tell us we are not enough unless we buy more. Francis teaches us the opposite, that joy comes not from having but from being. Ask yourself, do I really need more stuff? Or could happiness come from gratitude and simplicity? Minimalism, eco-living, mindfulness, all these modern trends echo when Francis lived centuries ago. Francis didn't just serve the poor, he embraced them. He touched lepers when others ran away, he listened when others ignored. Today, compassion means more than charity. It's about empathy, seeing the humanity in people, whether that's the homeless person on the street, the refugee seeking safety, or even the co-worker having a bad day. Francis reminds us that compassion isn't weakness, it's courage. Peace in a divided world. Francis lived during wars between Christians and Muslims. But instead of picking up a sword, he walked unarmed into the Muslim camp during the Crusades, just to meet the Sultan of Egypt. They didn't agree on everything, but they respected one another. Imagine that kind of dialogue today. In a world full of division, Francis shows us that real strength lies in building bridges, not walls. At a time when climate change and environmental destructions dominated the headlines, Francis feels more relevant than ever. He saw the earth as sacred. He didn't see humans as masters of creations, but caretakers. Imagine we lived that way today, valuing clean air, protected animals, and preserving forests, not just profit, but for love. In fact, Francis is the patron saint of ecology. His message feels like a call to action for us in 21st century. Francis was known for his joy. Even when he had nothing, he laughed and sang and celebrated life. He reminds us that joy doesn't come from perfection, it comes from the presence. Think of a last time you laughed uncontrollably with a friend, or watched a sunset, or hugged your child. That's where Francis would say, "Here is God, here is life." So, how do we call and take all this? Francis' simplicity, compassion, peace, love for nature and joy, and live it in our world. Here are some practical ways. First, practice gratitude daily. Instead of focusing on what you lack, thank God or life for what you already have. Francis found wealth in simplicity. 2. Choose compassion over judgment. Pause before criticizing. Ask yourself, what's this person going through? Care for creation. Plant a tree, recycle, reduce waste. Remember, small acts matter. Live simply. Declutter your home. Spend less time chasing things and more time with people. 5. Seek peace. Be the one who listens in arguments. Be the bridge in conflicts. If Francis were alive today, I think he would remind us the world doesn't change by grand speeches. It changes when one person chooses compassion and then another and another. Saint Francis of Assisi lived 800 years ago, but his message is timeless. He showed us that compassion is stronger than power, simplicity is richer than wealth, and joy can be found in the smallest of things. So the question is, what will you do with his example? Maybe it's as simple as smiling at a stranger, helping a neighbor, or caring for the earth. Francis would say, don't wait for the world to change. Start with love right where you are. Because compassion, timeless compassion, is still the most powerful force we have today. If the story of Saint Francis inspired you, I would love for you to join our community here on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and share it with someone who could use a little hope today. And let me know in the comments what part of Francis' life speaks the most to you. Your thoughts may inspire someone else watching. Thank you.